Okay, hello everybody. This is Bill Elsey here with Wines.com. Sitting next to me is Scott Oda, who I'm sure many of you are familiar with, Sommelier for the Driskill Bar and Grill in Austin, Texas. And today we are going to taste a wine from a producer in California. It's called Iron Horse. This is their Russian Cuvee, tasting the 2006 vintage. So Scott, whenever you think of California, or I guess New World traditional method sparkling wine, what do you think about? What flavors come to mind?
Typically, I get more of the orchard fruit driven style. I think, especially if you're doing the traditional blend Chardonnay, Pinot Noir, Pinot Meunier. Again, orchard fruit driven. You're going to get that zestiness toward the back end. Combination of orchard as well as citrus fruits. Bright acidity, very, very refreshing, nice and crisp. I usually like mine just a little bit more dry. But I would say the main difference that I usually get between, say, French champagne and domestic sparkling is both a combination of the weight as well as the mineral character. I tend to get a lot more mineral limestone, oyster shells in a more terroir-driven champagne.
Gotcha. Okay, so I definitely agree. You get more of that chalkiness, that underlying mineral character definitely comes through. So, we're not really celebrating anything, but let's see how these bubbles taste and see what we think about the Russian Cuvee.
Absolutely.
Let's taste it.
Anytime there are bubbles in the glass, it's time to celebrate.
Exactly, exactly. Well, I think, one thing that comes out to me, like right off the bat, and something that you alluded to, is that while there still is a little bit of an underlying minerality to it, I think it's much more of a riper fruit character, but like a yellow apple or like a riper pear type of flavors to it. What are you getting? Definitely,
I'm getting that big round yellow apple character to it. I think it's very, very fleshy. It's pretty full-bodied for a sparkling wine. I think the effervescence plays up and almost literally like foams in your mouth. It's like a face wash, but not in that clean sort of way. I mean, the wine itself is very clean, but just the texture of it moving from a liquid to almost a foam whenever I swish it around my mouth. Still feels nice and dry, but you can still feel that real that sun-driven ripe sugar that you get within the wine.
Yeah, I think it definitely has kind of that riper style, a little bit more round in the mouth. But the acidity is still there. I mean, it still has a nice refreshing character to it. I do think that this wine has a little bit higher of a dosage to it. It seems like there's a little bit more either sweetness or like the fruitiness, so maybe it kind of balances out that acidity to it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think in addition to it, where I think it definitely starts off with like a sweeter fruit attack, I get that a little bit more of the yeastiness toward the middle palate, where you get that a little bit of like baked toast, brioche French toast type of feel to it. So I think the yeast kind of plays a little bit more nicely toward mid palate, and again finishing dry.
Yeah. So out of the traditional champagne or sparkling wine varieties, just based off of taste, what grapes do you think would be the predominant grape in this?
This one, I would probably say Pinot Noir is going to be the most dominant in this one. I think it's showing so much more of that apple character as opposed to sometimes when you're doing a Chardonnay, I get a little bit more of that zesty, citrus character.
Zesty,
I think this is definitely leading with orchard fruit. So in my opinion, this is probably more of a Pinot Noir dominant.
Yeah. Actually, when I was doing a little bit of research on the wine, it is Pinot Noir dominant. It's about 75% Pinot Noir, and then 25% Chardonnay to it. So it does have a little bit more, I guess, exactly what you're saying. That kind of orchard fruit, that apple character to it. So, my job today was to pull the bottle of wine, and then I asked you to get some stemware for us to taste out of. I'm curious as to why you picked a flute and then also like just a standard Chardonnay or white wine glass. What was the reason behind that?
Well, the reason behind that is, back in the day before the champagne didn't have a lot of riddling. Whenever there finally was riddling, and champagne had this beautiful color, brilliant finesse to it, it was very beautiful to watch the bubbles rise. However, I feel like whenever I stick my nose to a small flute, the bouquet doesn't have enough time to really develop. So, you know, I think as we were alluding to earlier when we were discussing off camera, how it's still, in essence, champagne is a white wine, and there has a lot of character, a lot of joy found within the bouquet. I think it's very, very lively, and it's like, and why would you want to constrict it to something that you can only get this much out of, as opposed to something that is full bulb, let that bouquet swirl, let that develop. I like looking at the bubbles, but honestly, I'd rather have it all up in my nose.
You know, I like looking at the bubbles too. Yeah, and definitely I like the aromatics of it like this, but I typically drink my sparkling wines or champagnes fast enough to where the bubbles don't go away. So I don't know if that's just me or not, but I don't really have a hard time getting a glass of champagne down before the bubbles dissipate in a glass that's like this. So, you know, a couple of things about the Russian Cuvee. You know, that's an interesting name for a California-based sparkling wine. A little history with this wine is actually this was the wine that President Reagan took to Russia during the end of the Cold War, whenever he was in negotiations with Gorbachev. Actually, the first vintage of this was in 1985, I do believe, and you know, they continued to produce vintages of this, and you know, a commemorative you know, recognition for the ceremony that happened with that. So it's a pretty cool thing, you know. I mean, something that you know, from our lifetime at least has been, you know, produced, and it's a very significant event, and so you know, I guess champagne or sparkling wine can end wars. So I don't know. I mean, if you're ever having an argument or something out there, just pop open a bottle of bubbles and everything's going to end well.
Serious. It's like liquid smiles.
Yeah, liquid smiles. Okay, yeah, exactly.
So that's what sparkling wine is. There's never a bad moment whenever there is champagne in your glass or sparkling wine in your glass.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
Absolutely. So that's our thoughts on the Russian Cuvee produced by Iron Horse Winery. Great wine, great sparkling wine from California. Definitely recommend going out and, you know, purchasing a bottle of this to you know, share with friends and commemorate the end of the Soviet Union. Yeah, the end of the Soviet Union's argument with the United States. So
let's drink this bottle.
Drink this bottle. Okay, very good.
There's always a good time when sparkling's around.
I know, man. It's a celebration.